Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. I'm Dr. Shawn, and this is where in-depth biblical teaching meets the richness of original languages and cultural context, bringing the truth of Scripture to real people for real life every single episode. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up, and thank you for subscribing. Thank you to everyone in chat. Thank you to everyone listening. Wherever you are, whether you're listening live or you listen on playback, thank you to our distribution channel at Buzzsprout, sending our message out across, I think, 34 different podcast locations, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, all of the ones, everywhere where you get podcasts. And we really value the podcast listener, and we want you to know that, and we appreciate you. So thank you so much. I want to share something special with you. Something that means really everything to me. Everything. In my life, in my mission, it's why I'm doing this channel. It's why I wrote my books. And these lyrics resonate with me better than I think what I could write. Good morning, Samantha. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Robert. Good to see you. Thank you so much. So this is called The Commission, Go Tell the World. It's a song by the Christian band Cain. It features Isaiah Templeton, and I would play it for you, but I don't have the licensing to do that, so I don't want to get a copyright strike. So I'm going to read the lyrics to you because the lyrics really convey a message from Jesus to his followers, encouraging them to share the gospel with the world. So here it is. See my hands and look at my feet. It's okay if it's hard to believe. I have faith in you. I have faith you will do greater things. It's my time to go, but before I leave, go tell the world about me. I was dead, but now I live. I've got to go now for a little while, but goodbye is not the end. Don't forget the things that I taught you. I've conquered death and I hold the keys. Where I go, you will go too someday. But there's much to do here before you leave. Go tell the world about me. I was dead, but now I live. I've got to go now for a little while. But goodbye is not the end. The end of the journey. The end of the road. My spirit is with you wherever you go. You have a purpose, and I have a plan. I'll make you this promise. I'll come back again. Go tell the world about me. I was dead, but now I live. Oh, I've got to go now for a little while. But goodbye is not the end. I encourage you to, if you have Alexa or you have any of the different things that you have, and even, I hope that you're subscribed on Spotify to me and you follow, and iHeartRadio and iTunes and all that stuff. Maybe you could do an iTunes review. By the way, if you're not subscribed to this channel, the YouTube channel, True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, even if you don't typically listen on this, please go to the channel. Click on subscribe, click on the little bell, click on the thumbs up while you're at it. And then that way notifications get sent out to you. It also helps the channel. It helps more people to hear what we've got going here. So on Sunday, we heard part one. I don't know if you were here for part one. Some of you were. I see some of you were. Yeah, that was a little boo-hooey. That was a wee bit boo-hooey. Telling stories of experiences that I've had that were utterly extraordinary in one church in particular. So if you didn't hear part one, that's okay. You can listen to it. It's very long. It's 1 hour and 50 some minutes, almost 2 hours. I don't apologize for that because you know what? Not for nothing. That's okay. It's okay. You can listen in pieces. You don't have to listen to it all at once if you're not in a situation where you can, or where you want to, but I encourage you to listen to the whole thing. Listen, as piece by piece. So part one was the introduction of this 4,112 part series. Actually, I don't even know how many parts it is. I've got to segment it, figure it out. But I was boohooey. So imagine this. You're sitting on a sun-scorched Galilean hillside surrounded by a crowd of desperate, hopeless people. And suddenly, Yeshua's voice pierces through the noise with words that challenge the status quo. Words that heal broken hearts. And they reveal God's roadmap for living a life of purpose, a life of joy and eternal impact. You're going to hear, if you listen to this series, you're going to hear the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, like you've never heard it before. Now, I want to set a stage. Now that you have the 1 hour and 56 minute summation of 4,557 episode series, if you listen to that one, the first one, let's go deeper. We're going to set this scene. I want you to picture this. Yeshua, Jesus. By the way, how's my sound? If you could let me know in chat how the sound is. Is it loud enough, not loud enough? Yeshua he's speaking to a crowd gathered on a mountainside. Among them are his disciples, curious onlookers, everyday people. But they're not everyday people. These are people hopelessly and desperately burdened by Roman oppression. Many of them can't even feed themselves. Not for a lifetime, not for a day. They're longing for hope, any hope, for a Messiah who will deliver them from the desperate, hopeless lives they're living. And they've come to hear someone who speaks with authority, who connects the dots between the promises of the Hebrew Scriptures and their present suffering. Word on the street is this man, this rabbi, this teacher is totally different than anything they or the world has ever seen or heard. Now imagine the setting itself. The mountainside isn't just a convenient place to gather it. It evokes memories of Sinai, where Moses received the Torah. It is Middle East hot. There's no aircon, no chairs, nothing. Hey, Dustin, good to see you. Yeshua is presenting himself as the ultimate teacher, bringing not new laws and hopelessly complex rules as the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Sanhedrin have done, but the fulfillment of Torah in a deeply transformative way. This isn't a political rally or a philosophical lecture, really. It's an invitation into a radically different kind of kingdom, the likes of which no one, and I mean no one in the world, has ever seen. So what does blessed mean? They all start with blessed, the beatitude part of it. If you're going to listen, or you've already listened to part one, I read the entire Sermon on the Mount. Very rarely is that ever read in one piece. Probably the death knell to clicks, because people are conditioned. It's a microwave society. Let's say the microwave instructions say, put on high for 1 minute. At 41 seconds, you're going, it's probably done enough. That's our society. We have a very short attention span. I don't teach very short lessons. I'm not for everybody. But I want you to understand all of it. I want you to get your money's worth. By the way, thank you to Facebook Live, our Facebook Live listeners, our Twitch listeners, our Instagram, our LinkedIn, and our X listeners. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. Click on follow or whatever the thing is, if you don't mind. So, blessed. It's very misunderstood. In Greek, it's makarios, which some translations render as happy. But happiness, in the biblical sense, isn't about fleeting emotions or feeling good. My dear professor and President Emeritus of Masters, Dr. Dennis Fry, he wrote a book about whipped up emotionalism. No, this is not that whipped up emotionalism. Happiness in the biblical sense isn't about feelings. It's not about feeling good. The Hebrew roots of this idea, found in words like ashrei, in the Psalms, carry a sense of being in alignment with God's purposes. And for example, here's a great example for you, Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. That's Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. Here, blessed means a life that reflects God's favor and direction. It's not about material success or personal comfort, but it's about living in harmony with God's design for humanity. Yeshua's use of blessed flips our worldly expectations completely upside down. Consider this first beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Huh? Blessed are the poor in spirit. You know, in our culture, poverty, whether it's spiritual or material, it's usually seen as a sign of failure. Look, if you're poor, you failed. Right? That's how we look at it. We measure things by financial success. It's interesting, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, says he doesn't measure anything that way. He measures nothing by poverty. He doesn't measure people by poverty. I found that intensely interesting, that he doesn't measure people that way. He looks at people and he says, who are you as a person? What are you about? But, you know, most of society ironically sees if you're poor, if you don't have much, you're a failure. We measure things by how much you have, how much comfort you have. We measure by your toys, you know, do you have all the toys? Are you debt free? Society looks at poverty as a sign of failure. But Yeshua, here in this place, on this hillside, Yeshua, Jesus, declares it the starting point of entering God's kingdom. And that is why he started with that. Blessed are the poor in spirit. To be blessed, then, is to experience God's presence. Blessed is to experience God's provision in the least expected circumstances. Blessed under the most unlikely and appalling life conditions. Just life-defying. Conditions that just defy life that anyone really could imagine. You know, Yeshua in his Sermon on the Mount, he challenges us to rethink what it means to live a Lucky Life. Dr. Moen, who wrote the book, The Lucky Life, the backwards Beatitudes. I encourage you to get that book. It's going to break your brain. It's a small book. It's going to break your brain. Don't blame me. I'm just telling you, go get the book and hang in there. It was one of Dr. Moen. One of the things about Dr. Moen is if Dr. Moen, even in an undergraduate course, I had him for undergraduate courses, I had him for grad courses, and I had him for doctoral courses. You're going to have 6 textbooks at least from him. I mean, there's a lot of reading. But this was one of them, and I was all happy before I opened it up. I was like, woohoo, this is easy. Look at this little tiny book. This will be easy. I'll whip right through this. Nah. Nope. Hard no. It's one of the hardest things I have ever read or ever digested. The lectures were unreal. Just indescribable. The whole time I'm going, what? What? Dr. Moen argues that the Beatitudes aren't a list of moral achievements, but a portrait of people who are open to God's transformative work. The lucky life isn't about escaping hardship. It's about finding God in the middle of the hardship. An example could be the poor in spirit are those who recognize their dependence on God. I don't know. I've had a lot, and I've had less than nothing. And I'm embarrassed to say I felt closer to God when I had almost nothing. Now, I'm not encouraging you to go out and set fire to all your stuff. By no means. But I talked about it in episode 1. It's one of the reasons why I was so boo-hooey. To the point where Miss Colleen texted me and said, "Do you need me to bring you some tissues?" She was in the other room listening. She's at work today. Whew. And if you want to hear powerful stories, true stories about real people that I experienced and real things, I'm telling you, listen to episode 1. Gut it out. Just gut it out. Get her done. Utter dependence on God. When was I closer to God than when I was utterly dependent on Him? I learned a very valuable lesson then. Keep short accounts with God. Stay connected. Stay connected with the Word of God. Stay connected with prayer. It's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, True Word Faith for Life, with Dr. Shawn Michael Greener. You can get it on lulu.com, Lulu.com. Just search Dr. Shawn Michael Greener and it'll be there. It's excellent quality. It's an incredible quality book. I didn't want to send out anything junky. I want it to last a lifetime. Tell your friends. Or you can buy it on all the places that people buy books. But the problem is if you buy it on like Amazon, we get $1. The ministry gets $1. But if you buy it on Lulu, we get a little bit more than that. Not much more, but we get more than that. So it helps us kind of keep doing what we're doing because it's not free. I thought it was free when I first started, and then I learned, no, it is not free. So I'm on a fixed income. I'm totally disabled, so not to whine. I'm very lucky. So you talk about being reliant upon God, when you can't tie your shoes anymore, when you can't button your buttons on your shirt most days. Yeah, can't write. I used to have beautiful handwriting. Beautiful. Before I got hurt, before I got sick. I know what it is to be poor in spirit. I know what it is. And many of you know what it is. when you have nothing left to give but your trust. You say, I don't have anything to give you. Got nothing left. You know, those who mourn, they're not just grieving personal losses, but mourning the brokenness of the world. And they're longing for God's restoration. Things were so jacked up for those people on that hillside. The Roman oppression was, you couldn't bear up under it. It was horrible. They just regularly hung people along the roadside, just on a whim. Let the birds pick at them. Well, you're coming into a Roman-dominated, Roman-controlled town. Guess what you saw on the way in? That's what you saw. A bunch of people hanging on crosses. The Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin, they were religious Rottweilers. They didn't ease up. They just pounded the people with rules and rules and rules and rules. Each beatitude invites us to a deeper relationship with God, where his power is made perfect in our weakness. That's a mind-blowing concept. God's power is made perfect in our weakness. This also highlights the communal nature of the Beatitudes. These blessings aren't just for people, individual people, but for the community of God's people. They're a call to live out our faith together, supporting one another as we seek to embody the values of God's kingdom. So how do we begin? I mean, these are heady things. How do we begin to live out the Beatitudes? Well, it starts with a shift in perspective, a shift in a paradigm shift. Ask yourself, where do I see God working in unexpected places in my life? I hadn't planned on this, but I'm going to tell you a story. I went to a church when I was a kid. It was a independent, fundamental, Bible-believing, KJV only, because that's what God carried. That's what Jesus carried. Church. You wore dress shoes. You wore dress pants. You wore a dress shirt. You wore a tie. Your hair was cut short. Certain things you could say, certain things you couldn't say. A lot of things you couldn't say. Certain things you could do, a lot of things you couldn't do. Whole long list of things. Very Pharisaical. Very oppressive and, controlling. Very judgy. Very cliquey. That's where we went. So there was this woman that came in one Sunday. I remember it. It seared into my brain. She came in. I didn't recognize her. She looked rough. She was a white lady. She looked rough. I remember her one knee was skinned to where you could see it had been bleeding. The blood had dried. Her other knee was skinned up. She looked hungry. She looked malnourished. Wearing a tiny, tiny, tiny short skirt and a blouse that really didn't cover everything, if you know what I'm saying. It was hot as Hades outside. Good lands, it was hot. You could kind of tell she was we didn't see a lot of prostitutes, but in my little town, little community, I was a country kid, It was a little tiny town, so it's, we didn't get a lot of cosmopolitan things like prostitutes and whatnot. I'm sure they existed, but I just didn't run across it. But this lady, clearly she was a little bit intoxicated still. She reeked of alcohol. And she sat down. She's kind of looking around like, where do I go? Service had already started. Nobody, we had pews, these wooden pews. Nobody, scooted over and offered her a place to sit. So I could see where she sat was just one of the open spots. And then, people were just like stare daggering her, stabbing her with eye daggers. They're just staring daggers right into her. I remember at a certain point, she got up. She walked to the back. I remember my mom saying, don't look, don't stare. But I had good peripheral vision, so I was kind of like, and I could see that some of the deacons or elders or trustees or whoever, they had gotten up and they walked over to her, and they kind of were like putting their hands not on her, but kind of trying to get her to go out. She wasn't being loud. She wasn't being disruptive. You could just tell she was lost, and she was hurting, and she needed somebody to love her. And I remember, there was doors there that made a sound because they were kind of those double doors that would go both ways. They were swing doors. They would go both ways. And there was a little window in them. And then you went out to like I don't know, you call it a vestibule, whatever. And then you had steps that went down and then a landing and then turned and then went down, and then you could go out. And I remember they were kind of pushing her. Not pushing her physically, but pushing her to leave. No mention from the pulpit. That was the former pastor. I bet if it was Pastor Sparrow, believe you me, he would have had somebody help her. If it was Pastor Latour, he would have absolutely had somebody help her. He would have stopped what he was doing and said, hey, let's help that lady. Whatever she needs, ladies, let's go help her. But at this point in time, it was the other guy. I'm not going to say his name because, I don't want to put him on blast. He's dead. He's long since dead. I remember thinking to myself, that lady clearly and obviously needs help. I'm a little kid, but I know she needs somebody to get some peroxide and some warm soap and clean off her knees and wash her face and give her some coffee or some water. Maybe give her something to eat. I don't know where she was from. She wasn't from our town. Somehow or another, she got deposited there. And she was clearly lost. Lost spiritually, lost physically, lost emotionally. And so she left, and apparently she walked down Savannah or up Savannah Road. She walked, I guess, I'm not sure what it would be, what direction, but she walked towards this one corner where you could turn to the right, or you could keep going, a little bit of bend to the left. And apparently she was hit by a car and killed. Why didn't somebody minister to her? Why didn't somebody approach her with kindness and love? We were poor, but most of the people that went to that church, 3/4 of them, they were the people that basically owned the community. They could have easily helped her. We had a kitchen. They could have easily fed her, sat her down and said, hey, what's going on? Where do you live? Where are you from? What do you need? How can we help you? We can get you some clothes. We can find you a place to stay. All those resources were readily available in that church. And yet no one did it. They pushed her out because her shirt was too short. Her blouse wasn't buttoned all the way up. It was probably not the kind that would be approved. Definitely not the kind that would be approved. She reeked of alcohol. And it was obvious, even to a little boy, what probably her career was. Why? She was the poorest in spirit. She didn't know the story. She didn't know this story. The story Yeshua was telling from on that hill. She didn't know the story. The people inside the building that shooed her out, they knew the story. They didn't know it like I teach it, but they know it. They knew enough of it. But they didn't do it. If they were asked the question I just asked of you, to ask yourself, where do I see God working in unexpected places in my life? If they were to ask themselves that, all they need do is look at this woman who came in desperate need, poor in spirit, destitute. She was in the most challenging situation of her life, which would soon come to a violent, terrible, but preventable end. Maybe it's a challenging relationship you're experiencing. Maybe it's financial struggles. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's a season of uncertainty you're going through. But what Yeshua is telling these people on this hillside, and what he's telling us, is instead of seeing these as obstacles, view them as opportunities to experience God's grace. And how very often is God's grace extended and experienced to people through his people. Here's what I want you to think about for this week. I would like you might want to write this down. I would like you to reflect. Take 10 minutes. I'm not asking you to take 100 million minutes. I'm asking you to take 10 minutes each day just to read the Sermon on the Mount. The whole sermon is 2,468 words. I read the whole sermon yesterday. In a way I think you're probably not used to having it be read. Might be worth you watching. I want you to read the Sermon on the Mount, and I want you to journal about where you've seen God's blessings in your life, especially in difficult circumstances. Hi, Natalie. Thank you. It's true. It's horrible. Horrible. It stuck with me my whole life. Devastated me. That's why I said if I see somebody that genuinely needs help, especially if they come into the church, I'm going to help them. So I want you to reflect. These are your practical steps. First is reflect. Take some time. You don't need a fancy journal. Just get a notebook. Get one of those little composition books and a pen or a pencil. And reflect. Take 10 minutes each day, 10 minutes, to read the Sermon on the Mount and journal about where you've seen God's blessings in your life, especially in difficult circumstances. Step number 2, you might want to write this down. Pray. Pray. So simple. It's so simple. But you know what? You might not be praying because you're running from God. I know that experience. I don't want to talk to God right now because, well, I've brought him my hurts, habits, and habits, hurts, habits, and hangups so many times, the same ones, and I still got them, and he's not going to want to hear from me because, people just don't want to hear from you when you keep screwing up. It's not true. Come reach out to me. I'm listening. God says, I'm listening. Pray. Ask God to help you see his hand in the places where you feel least blessed. Ask God to help you see his hand in the places where you feel least blessed. Here's number 3. I want to write this down. Act. Look for a way to share God's blessings with someone else, whether through a kind word, a small act of service, or maybe a generous gift. Maybe you're in a situation where you can give a generous gift. I've mentioned about Martin, our dear friend in Mexico, indigenous Mexico. He's in dire straits. This is a terrible situation. He's at the end of his life. I just want to help him finish it well. I don't want him to starve to death. There are things that not that much money can help. And time is of the essence. So if you want to help, email me at smgreener@gmail.com. If you have my phone number, text message me. If you're in a situation where you can help. Look, if you're not, please don't. And then I give full accounting, and everything goes to a brother by the name of Ismail, and Ismail makes sure he has the special food he needs he eats through a port in his stomach, this special medical food, medical nutrition. We help to make sure he has the other foods that he can eat through his mouth. Clean water, his dogs, vegetables, fruits, his dogs. He rescued these street dogs. He just wants to feed them. He'll sacrifice his own food in order to feed his dogs. I said, well, trust me, I'm not going to go on a long list today because it's long. We can help this guy finish well. Doesn't take that much. Look for a way. This is acting. This is love is an action. Look for a way to share God's blessings outside of yourself. Maybe it's just a kind word. You say just a kind word. Just a kind word. Let me tell you what. I know of people's lives who have been saved by someone speaking kindly to them. Yeah. Just a kind word. What if that woman I told you about, if they had been kind to her? Hey, we want to get you a little something to eat. Are you hungry? Would you like something to eat, something to drink? Come on, these ladies will take you down to the kitchen. Well, there's food in that fridge. We'll give you something to eat. We'll get you a hot meal. Hey, there's a washroom. Yeah, we have washcloths and towels here. Let's help you out. Would it kill you to smile? I know some folks have the most beautiful smile in the world. And they walk around, they never smile. They never smile. Just the simplest little thing, like a smile. Would it kill you to smile? Thank you. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this episode of The Man on the Mountain Said What. I hope you'll continue this journey. I hope you will. I hope you'll continue with me. We're going to explore what it means to live a truly lucky life in God's kingdom. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the thumbs up. Share this episode with your friends. Maybe leave a comment. Leave a comment of what blessed means to you. Maybe leave a comment what blessed means to you. Hi, Catherine. So nice to see you. Hello. I'm well. Thank you. I hope you're doing well. And maybe, I talk about sharing this series. This channel's not monetized, so I don't get anything from YouTube. YouTube doesn't just send me money, So do it for you. Do it for those that are listening. Share. This is free. All of this is free. But it may be priceless to someone at the very edge of giving up, the truly poor in spirit. And by them hearing this, maybe it's not about me. It's about what Jesus said. It's about what Jesus said. We're going to talk about why. Next episode, we're going to talk about why. The Sermon on the Mount is in Matthew, which is Hebrew, Matthew 5. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure how to tell you where to find it. It's in the first book of the New Testament, which is in the middle. So right about the middle of the Bible, if you're new to the Bible, anyone listening, if you're new to the Bible, Metatyahu or Matthew, Metatyahu is Hebrew for Matthew. You go there and you'll see some bold letters as you go through the different parts of Scripture, and that's called a pericope. Pericope. That's what that's called. That's a title. Let me look at a regular Bible and see. I'm going to see about where the middle would be. Yeah, you're going to be, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're going to be right about the middle. In my Bible, and y'all, you can be thinking about how, maybe put in comments what you would write in comments. I'm trying to get to this. This one's a small Bible. Okay. So if you look here, so there's the Old Testament and there's the New Testament. So it's a little bit more than half in some Bibles, depending on what type of, like if you have a study Bible, you further back. So it's Matthew chapters 5 through 7. The whole thing, the Sermon on the Mount is there's a lot more to it. And I'm going to go through all of it. I'm going to go through the whole thing. There's a shorter version of it and I don't want to trip you up on this, that appears in Luke, the book of Luke, Matthew, Mark, Luke, Matthew, Mark, Luke. These are what's called the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are the Gospels. And Luke 6, chapter 6, verses 20 through 49. Now it's often called the Sermon on the Plain, but this is a much shorter version. So the Matthew chapter 5 through 7, that is the where it's recorded in the greatest detail. So hopefully that'll help you. It's one of the most powerful, but most often mistaught, misunderstood. But yet it's for 2,468 words, depending on the translation. Yeshua, who is Jesus, he's speaking to these people. I would encourage you. I think, Robert, you listened to episode 1, because I think you mentioned about your daughter. Utterly tragic. I'm so sorry about that. But I appreciate you sharing that. If that was you, I'm pretty sure that was you. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's not the easiest thing in the world to share. But if you haven't listened to episode 1, I'm going to be real honest with you. It's long. I get real boo-hooey in it. I didn't think I was gonna, but I was telling a story about churches, blessings from churches. I didn't even know these people. The inverse of the story that I told you about this lady. I've lived both experiences. The inverse of it was I told in part 1 of this series. I did it yesterday. It's under the live tab. It's free. It's under the live tab, and you're listen to it anytime. You listen to it in parts. It's long, 1 hour and 56 minutes. It's long. I'm not going to kid you. It's long, but it's worth it. I really believe that it's worth it. So I genuinely, and I don't say this lightly, when you folks listen, it means the world to me. You could be doing anything with your time. You can do anything you want. I mean, nobody's making you do this, and yet you do. I'm blown away by it. Every time somebody listens, look, I think I only have 600, maybe 603 subscribers after 230 some or 220 some messages and episodes. This isn't the one that people, this isn't the type of channel that, goes viral or, grows and leaps and bounds. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe this will never get bigger than 600 and some people. But I know that this is what God's called me to do. And if it's not profitable, if it doesn't spread and expand and all of these things, then, it's okay. I just want to help. I want to teach the truth in a way that you can relate to, understand, and replicate. So thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Shalom, shalom.